Free Rodney Reed. So the state of Texas is scheduled to execute an innocent man in 2 weeks on November 20th, 2019. Before we talk about this case, if you're in Austin, Texas, this Saturday, November 9th, there is a rally that afternoon at the governor's mansion, 1010 Colorado Street, Austin, Texas. If you can make it out there, please do. There's a petition you can sign if you're not in the area and can't make it out. The petition, when I signed it, had about 800,000 signatures. That was yesterday. It's now got 1,172,000 signatures. This is urgent. On November 20th, Texas is scheduled to execute an innocent man for a rape and murder he did not commit. So let's get into this case. Stacey Stites died in April 1996. Nearly 1 year later, Bastrop sheriffs arrested a 29-year-old black man named Rodney Reed. He was charged with capital murder, citing DNA evidence matching Reed's DNA to a small amount of sperm found inside the body. Prosecutors successfully argued that this was enough evidence to prove that Reed was responsible for her brutal sexual assault and murder. Rodney has steadfastly maintained his innocence from day one. Absolutely zero evidence exists that Rodney had anything at all to do with this crime. He was in a consensual relationship with Stacey Stites, and the only DNA of Rodney's that was found was from this consensual relationship. The prosecution, citing the DNA, persuaded an all-white jury of his guilt. He was convicted and sentenced to die by lethal injection. Currently, he is scheduled to die in just a few days, on November 20th, 2019. The original suspect in the case was Stites' fiancé, Jimmy Fennell, a brutal police officer with a history of violence against women. After the murder of Stacey Stites, Fennell kidnapped a woman and sexually assaulted her while on duty as a police officer. He was convicted and sentenced to 10 years in prison for this. Despite sworn affidavits from witnesses establishing that Jimmy Fennell threatened to kill Stites before and that he has subsequently confessed to the crime, and compelling expert testimony establishing Reed's innocence, all requests to evaluate new evidence have been unsuccessful. In a sworn affidavit submitted Wednesday evening on behalf of death row inmate Rodney Reed, a former prison inmate claims another man bragged about committing the murder that sent Reed to death row 21 years ago. According to the affidavit, that man was Jimmy Fennell, the fiancé of murder victim Stacey Stites. He was talking about his fiancée with a lot of hatred and anger, said the 3-page affidavit by Arthur Snow Jr., who was serving a term for forgery. Jimmy said his fiancée had been sleeping around with a black man behind his back. Fennell proudly added that he killed the woman in response. Snow was the fourth witness produced by defense lawyers in recent weeks as they scrambled to block Reed's November 20th execution date. So let's see what this compelling expert testimony is all about. This is from innocenceproject.org. Here are key facts you should know about his case. Number 1, the murder weapon has never been tested for DNA evidence. Requests for DNA testing of crime scene evidence, including a belt that was used as the murder weapon, has been repeatedly denied by the Texas Court of Criminal Appeals. In 2018, the United States Supreme Court declined to directly review the Texas court's denial of DNA testing. The state's 3 forensic experts, number 2, have admitted on the record to errors in their testimony which led to Reed's conviction and death sentence. The 3 forensic experts from Reed's original trial have submitted affidavits that the original time of death is inaccurate, which makes the timeline for Reed killing Stites implausible. Renowned forensics pathologists have all concluded that Reed's guilt is medically and scientifically impossible. Impossible? The prosecution's only forensic evidence linking Reed to the crime was semen taken from Stites' body, which was attributed to the consensual relationship between them. The prosecution used this to connect him to the murder and refute this consensual romantic relationship, but supporting testimony has since been recanted and completely discredits the state's case. Number 4. Rodney Reed and Stacey Stites were having a consensual sexual relationship. At the time of the trial, no one came forward to corroborate their relationship. Today, new witnesses, including Stites' own cousin and co-worker, have corroborated Reed's claim that they knew that Reed and Stites were romantically involved. Number 5. For months after the murder, Jimmy Fennell was the prime suspect in the case. A recording of one of the police investigators indicates that Fennell was suspected in the murder of Stites, motivated by her relationship with another man. And number 6. Fennell's best friend at the time of the crime, Bastrop Sheriff's Officer Curtis Davis, has now revealed that Fennell gave an inconsistent account of where he was on the night of the murder. He told his friend he was out drinking on the night Stites was murdered. Contradicting this claim, he later stated he was with Stites in their apartment during what we now know was the actual time of her death, based on Dr. Michael Baden's updated testimony. When asked to explain this discrepancy, Fennell declined to testify because his answers might further incriminate him. Number 7. 2 witnesses have come forward in recent weeks and submitted signed affidavits that add to the mounting evidence against Jimmy Fennell. These affidavits, including testimony from an insurance salesperson who stated that Fennell threatened to kill Stites while applying for life insurance. The second witness was a deputy in the Lee County Sheriff's Office at the time of the murder, who Fennell made an alarming and incriminating statement to at Stites' funeral regarding her body. And number 10, a confession by Jimmy Fennell has come to light. So there is no reason whatsoever that Texas should be giving this man the death penalty. There is no reason this man should be in jail for a second longer. He must be freed. We have to do everything we can. Links in the description. FreeRodneyReed.com, InnocenceProject.org, Stand with Rodney Reed. You can go there and you can put in your zip code, contact Governor Abbott and the Texas Board of Pardons and Paroles, and do what we can to stop this execution. There's so much reasonable doubt cast on this case from the inconsistent and outright false testimonies to the racial component of this case, and the fact that there is a confession to the murder from a person with a history of violence against women who has been convicted of a crime, a violent crime against a woman. The evidence that is being disregarded, not DNA tested, that would exonerate Rodney Reed. We already know how this guy feels about black people. We know that this man was wrongly convicted by an all-white jury. The evidence is really what matters here. The evidence that was ignored. The murder weapon not being DNA tested. The testimonies of the forensic pathologists. The testimonies that were recanted because they were inaccurate. And the fact that Fennell admitted to killing her. Multiple witnesses swear under oath that Fennell knew about Stites' affair with Reed, threatened to kill her because of it, and made it clear at her funeral that he believed she got what she deserved. And the only evidence, the only circumstantial evidence that they were able to get him on was that he nutted in her, and it was consensual. They had a relationship. The family, her family, said that, oh yeah, they were in a relationship. We knew him, or knew about it. This is completely inhuman that the state of Texas is going to execute an innocent man. And frankly, this is why the death penalty shouldn't exist. Because if you have a policy wherein the state can execute a citizen, the state is going to execute a certain number of innocents some of the time. I would not be okay with the state killing any amount of innocent people just to put some bad people to death. I don't think that's the way I don't think that's justified. I don't think that that's justice. And Sema Hernandez does not think that that's justice either. Sema Hernandez opposes the death penalty. And she's spoken out for Rodney Reed. Hashtag free Rodney Reed. Saturday, November 9th, 2019, 2 p.m. to 3 p.m., Governor's Mansion, 1010 Colorado Street, Austin, Texas. Free Rodney Reed.